a lot of the people that I hang around with, they just have an abundance mindset.
I'm here with my good buddy, Ruben. Finally have you on the show. Why consider MTR?
So I was hanging around a bunch of people who are in vacation rental markets. I'm hearing some ridiculous numbers like, oh yeah, 25K a month, 30K. So with that, I had kind of like the shiny object syndrome where we were almost ready to jump and be like, okay, let's go find ourselves a realtor in Florida. But then I thought, I'm saying, okay, how do we extract more with what we currently have?
All it is problem solving. Like, you want to be a good business person. Like, if you can solve problems, like, you're halfway there. Are there certain properties that are more suitable for midterm rentals? I'm just trying to, that sounds great. How do I do that for myself?
I think typically we get people like, well, will this work in my market? And actually flip the question. I say, well, what kind of asset do you own? And for me, it's all about the asset type because this is very prevalent. And at the end of the day, it's supply and demand.
All right, welcome back to STR the Best. I'm your host, Michael Chang. I'm here with my good buddy, Ruben. Ruben, finally have you on the show.
I know. It's about time. Like, you know how it is. I was just talking about it offline. I like to ask questions because I'm constantly learning. So guess we're roles reversed. Had you on mind though. That was great. We had a great podcast.
Yeah, no, you were the early inspiration for the podcast and the why and just helping me kind of think through it. So it's a treat for me to have you on mine now. Episode. This is we published 30 now to date. So
okay.
I mean, this will be at 35 or something when it gets published.
Good for you, man. What is it? Most people quit at like after 5 or something?
I read most people quit after 25. So what I did was, before I launched the podcast, there's 25 names of people that I want to interview. So I was like, if I don't have 25 names and I thought I can get to them and why I would want to talk to them, I'm not even going to start it. So it took me actually a little while to get to that. And then I was like, okay, I'm committed to doing this. And then, yeah, it's great. So folks that are listening, we appreciate your support. Please subscribe on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
Subscribe. And honestly, I got to say this because it's on top of mind and on my chest. Like, I think it's one of the biggest underutilized tools. Because you get to connect with someone. Maybe you're not in the same city or state and you can't do a meetup and you can't maybe reach out in person. I'm all for in person, but if you can do that, I don't know why people stop at 25 because I have so many questions still, 260 plus episodes after. I want to keep learning and connections. You make great connections and relationships. So
I love listening to yours. So on that point, why don't I let you introduce yourself?
Yeah, brother. I introduced myself as a student of the game that takes action very quickly. I host the Real Estate Experiment podcast.
Subscribe to that, folks. Great podcast.
Thank you. And that was actually one of the podcasts that allowed me to get into the space that we're in today. A little bit of background, though. Fun fact for the both of us. We management consultant by trade. So every skill that I learned, I kind of applied it to business. Had an e-commerce business. I worked with a lot of virtual assistants. So still to this day, I'm very big on building systems and teams. I love building teams. And I've done it in the corporate world as well as a consultant, helping firms kind of, we've always done it this way to why are you doing it this way? So by nature, I have to ask great questions. And so that's what I do. And so when I want to get into real estate, I went back to the tool that I think I'm relatively good at, asking questions. Like literally, I had done some experience as a business analyst. You have to ask questions. You have to be able to ask those questions no one wants to ask in the room because it's deemed as a stupid question. So I would ask the question. And one of my things is proximity, right? So I got in proximity to people that I trade places with. That's my rule of thumb. Whatever book I want to read, whatever thing I would like to accomplish, I say, how can I get as close as possible to the source so that I can hear it from them? Because I'm against the paradox of practice. So that's when people are no longer in the game and they're selling you one thing that didn't necessarily was the thing that got them there.
Yeah.
There's no wrong. It's just not my style. I know you can help people, but I want to go straight to the source. So if someone's doing what I want to do, I want to get close. I want to ask questions. And that's how I'm here today. And now I get to share the gems with the people.
Yeah, no, you're doing really cool stuff on midterm rentals, which is what we're going to talk about today. But, just a little bit of, history. So Ruben and I, when he used to live in New York, we had lunch at PJ Clark's down at Battery Park City. And he had turned me the recovering investment banker, which I love the term.
Yes.
We both overlapped at a bank, in our careers, and we're both now, we both started short term rentals. Ruben doing more on the long term rental side. So let me talk a little about the short term rental side. Like, tell us about your short term rental business right now.
Yeah, yeah. So we built a business on top of our short-term rental business. And that's what you're probably hearing now. It's very prevalent for people to hear like midterm rentals. And really all that means, that's an internal term. That's not an external term. You talk to a tenant that's going to move in and you tell them midterm rental and they're going to look at you like, with four eyes. It's corporate housing. It's temporary housing. It's working with insurance companies. But I've said this before. I truly believe that we have an advantage if we're in the short term rental, aka the hospitality industry, because we have the foundation to be able to then build a model on top of the other. And what is that? That's the one where there's a stay that's typically more than 30 days. But I think we probably are familiar with more of the 30-day stay, that's like travel nurses, etc. Well, not necessarily. We like to go straight corporate. We like to go with there's tons of corporations out there who are looking to relocate a group of individuals, whether it's construction workers, whether it's, IT professionals or whatever the case. We happen to specialize in one niche that we love because there's a lot of money in it, and that's the insurance niche, right? And when we say insurance, it doesn't mean that it's all state and State Farm sending us clients directly, but these insurance companies have direct relations with temporary relocation agencies that then are the ones that place these displaced families when an unforeseen event happens, like a flood or a fire or something of that nature that occurs. They're eligible with respect to having a home insurance to be relocated temporarily until the problem gets resolved. So we really like to tap into that. And we actually use a hybrid model where we use the short term rental model when we don't have these large contracts, but then we truly, truly optimize for the MTR contracts because I always like to have an exit strategy.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think the way you framed it too, it's like you've built your business, the foundation of it was the short term rental side, right? That you kind of
Yeah.
understood how to service you over only a few days and then building a different strategy on MTR. So maybe, talk about the transition, like why I believe short term rentals probably like, or at least my belief, it's more profitable.
Hmm.
Short term stays, you charge a higher premium, generally speaking. Like, why consider MTRs, like midterm rentals, all term MTRs? Why do people opt for that?
I don't know if I told you the story because shout out to my buddy. I swear to, if there's another Mike out there, I'm gonna name my future child Mike, and they will become
You should.
a real estate investor by default. Because all the Mikes that I know in my network are just crushing it, right? You included, of course, my friend. So we were talking about Mike Elefante. A huge shout out to him because I remember I was in his we had a mastermind together. He had a mastermind, and what you're saying is actually accurate with respect to where you are in the marketplace, right? So I was hanging around a bunch of people who are in vacation rental markets and they were talking about their numbers. And I'm like, golly, like you guys are just squeezing the juice. Like I'm hearing some ridiculous numbers like, oh yeah, 25K a month, 30K. And I'm like, God, like we don't see those kind of numbers in my market because I'm in a short term rental market. I'll keep in mind, we're also buying the properties at a very different price point, right? So with that, I had kind of like the shiny object syndrome or the grass is greener, but I had some interest in. I'm like, okay, we were almost ready to jump and be like, okay, let's go find ourselves a realtor in Florida because all these guys are just crushing in Florida. But then I thought, I'm saying, okay, how do we extract more with what we currently have? So that's how we got into the midterm rental space, and that's how we got into a lucrative area. Because now, if I tell you like, hey, yeah, Mike, we're able to bring 10K a month, you might say, well, Ruben, that's an off month for me. Well, yeah, if your market at peak season is going to make 30K, there's no reason why you should optimize for that. However, there's a caveat to that because it's all with respect to the price and the value of your home. So
Right.
for us, it made sense because typically in our market we're getting like maybe like 6K, 7K top month gross. Now, mind you, these homes are like 1900 or 1800 for the mortgage. So again, decent margins compared to again, all relative, right? All relative to what we're buying. Because you might have someone else in another market that has an overhead of 5,000 and then they're grossing. So for us, we were looking for a spread to get more of what we currently had. And so one of the lowest hanging fruits was to say, well, there's two things. It was like, okay, great. Well, what would it look like if we didn't just jump ship and go to another market? What's another strategy that could work? And that's how we got into the midterm rental insurance niche, where these guys were willing to pay us a premium, 4x, even we're actually making more doing this model than we did with short term rentals, which is pretty fascinating, especially when you land a really good contract. There's less headaches, less turnovers. You don't have to deal with the nuances and the high maintenance of STR guests. So one of the things is the numbers that we talk about, but another thing we don't talk about is that peace of mind as well. I know you and I were talking about it offline, like where we have a very stabilized portfolio, these corporations like pay on time, lucrative at a premium rate. For me, even if I were to make an extra 1,000 or two, I would say, you know what, without all these, headaches that you have to deal with, I love the peace of mind of having like an 8 month stay at a premium rather than the alternative. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't have your cake and eat it too, but it's good for you to know that there's an option for you to even possibly be able to leverage the strategy in your existing market.
Okay, I think that's a very great pitch, right? I think a lot of people are very attracted by that, right? Hey, I can have one guest, 8 months, premium rates. I don't have to deal with people coming in every 3 4 days and having to deal with that. Is there a certain kind of property, but not every single property can do that, right? Like,
Mhm.
are there certain properties that are generally more suitable for midterm rentals? I'm just trying to, what I'm trying to get at is if someone's listening right now and says, that sounds great, how do I do that for myself? Like for me, like, we have 2 bedroom apartments in Philadelphia. Like they're not going to MTR at a rate that where it makes sense. But, because I think that where it is and it's small and it's in Philly, I don't know, right?
Yeah.
It probably isn't the most optimized. So like what works generally the best in what you're talking about, the model that
Yeah.
you're talking about?
That's a good question because I think typically we get people like, well, will this work in my market? And I actually flip the question. I say, well, what kind of asset do you own? Because if you own a 1 bedroom or a 2 bedroom, then you're probably thinking what the traditional MTR model is. And it's for the smaller, maybe it is that traveling nurse, maybe it is you're close to a hospital, but
They don't
that's
have
not what we
budget. Those
optimize.
nurses don't have
Exactly.
budgets.
That's not what we're optimizing for. Because listen, I want to follow where the money's at. And so where does the money flow towards? And for me, it's all about the asset type because this is very prevalent. And at the end of the day, it's supply and demand. And so the type of asset that works the most that we've seen and we've seen our students have success in is the 4 to 5 bedroom range, right? Now, 3 bedrooms, a nice little, right in the middle there. But why not go for four if you can? And I mean, like,
Yeah.
if you're going to go ahead and buy, if you're going to go ahead and co host, I like to always say, Mike, I always want to increase my chances because it's not like people always ask, like, is it this or that? It's not this or that. It's just, can I increase my chances of landing a contract? Because I always say this, and whoever's watching my YouTube channel, I literally repeat this all the time because I think it's 100% true. It's like, it's easy and it's possible to fit a family of two in a 5 bedroom home, but it's hard to fit a family of five in a 2 bedroom home. So we've done that. We've had an 8 month contract where there was two people in a 5 bedroom home. We could fit them because there was a need that couldn't be met. And again, our home was wheelchair accessible, as in it wasn't ADA compliant by any means, but it was master was on main. Everything was accessible on the first floor. Again, tons we had a fenced in backyard. We're increasing all of our chances to be able to host a family, which maybe there is somebody that has a physical limitation, or maybe there is, by the way, 70% of the families that we've had have had pets. So the whole, if you don't believe in being pet friendly, maybe this isn't the right opportunity for
All
you
right.
because the market shows that there is a lack of supply for homes that are pet friendly. And when you think about it, if you relocate and your pets are going to be running around, do they have a place to run around? And do they have safety? Do you have a fenced in backyard? So that's what we look at. 4 to 5 bedroom home, stay away from carpets. Want to make sure that you have all the amenities, right? You could ask for. It doesn't have to be fancy by any means. It has to be functional. Do you have a
Yeah.
dedicated workspace? Do you have a garage? That's a big one. People are going to come with their cars, and if they're used to putting in the garage, they're going to lean towards having a place where they can put their cars in the
Do they
garage.
get a choice? Do the displaced families get a choice?
Yeah.
Do they get like, hey, the insurance company goes to them and says, hey, we have 3 choices for you, and they're like, okay, I like Ruben's place versus John's place.
Well, it's a good question because I'll give you a scenario to answer your question because I'm a visual person. So let's say I got to relook at a family of five with two dogs, right? And I got to be in this specific zip code because it got to be close to home. If I zoom in on that zip code, I might see, okay, great, what's available in that zip code? Now, a few things happen. If I leverage the OTAs, for example, or let's just keep it simple and let's say it's on Airbnb. I look at there's 30 properties. Then I do something that's interesting. That's by data. Always will most of the time we'll have this outcome. Filter on pet friendly. All of a sudden, that denominator gets cut in half. There's 15 properties left. Now, then I'll do, well, that's fine. They're available now, but I need to relocate this family for the next 3 months. What's available for the next 3 months? All of a sudden, there's 4 properties available. Now I'll look at those 4 properties, and there'll be two things. If you're available, there's a reason why you're available. Either it's you're actually not a property that's worth booking for, and that's why you're still available. So mobile will knock out 2 options. Now you got 2 options left. And I look and we'll say, well, one finishes and looks like an Airbnb, and the other looks like, like a furnished finder property. And I don't mean to take a hit on furnished finder properties, but when you look at the kind of product that I know you have a mastermind where you teach, right? We are not trying to be the Airbnb operator next door. We're in a hospitality business that where we offer great properties, great photos, great design, smart locks, etc. If you have 2 experiences and you choose to walk those 2 properties, which one are you going to choose, Mike? The one that's
Yeah.
like, bent out of shape based on what is available, or the one that is the best product in the marketplace? And by the way, is pet friendly and has everything to offer, plus more than maybe the home where they came from. So, in short, yes, they have a choice. And if they happen to have, let's say, 3 choices of five, if you're in the STR space, you're probably going to be at an advantage because you know everything about serving a quality product compared to someone who's just slapping a property on a website. But then again, that's why it serves you best to have all those tick boxes checked, because if someone does walk 5 properties, how do you make sure that they're able to say that, hey, I want to pick Mike's and not anybody else's? You're going to have to make sure you really cater to the experience. And yes, they do have a choice. So at the end of the day, they have a choice with a little caveat, little asterisk, if it is approved by their adjuster and falls within a comparable like property that they're coming from. And for example, if I'm coming from a $300,000 home, it's going to be tough to sell to the adjuster to move me in $1 million home, right?
Yeah.
And that's probably not
Got
going to be in your neighborhood anyway. So yes, they do have a choice. With all
Are they
respect to the other
do they
market
have to be close
conditions.
by? So you say in the neighborhood, do they have to be close by? Like, if I live here, like, within was it 10, 20, 30, 50,
Yeah,
100 miles? Like, what's the
yeah,
general
they like to stay within a 10-mile radius
10 mile? Okay.
based on what is available in the marketplace, right? Because if I do that zoom in and I do hey, what's available for the next 3 months, and there's only one property available in the next zip code over, well, maybe they're willing to actually commute a little bit further out. So it's all based on supply and demand.
Okay. Do you get paid up front 8 months? Like, since 8 months, is it month to month? They pay every single month, or?
So it's funny. I've tried asking for 2 months up front and I've gotten it, which is
Oh,
great
okay.
because a nice cash injection. I've never
Yeah.
asked for 8 up front, but corporate is corporate. You know, if you sign a contract, whether you want it up front, now I like the cash flow, but if you've ever done, we've done 2 months up front, which is pretty sweet because we get security 2 months up front, so you get a huge cash injection, and maybe you just run the next play, right? But I've never tried that. Maybe an experiment worth having.
Right. I mean, the more cash in hand, the better
Yeah.
for the cash flow. When someone comes to you and say, "Hey, Ruben, I had this short term rental. It's not working out. I want to flip it to long term rental." What would your advice be to them? Like, I guess struggling with SCR. I'm interested in MTR. I'm gonna, I'm gonna flip it to a long term rental, right? Like, this SCR thing isn't working for me. What would be your counsel to this person?
I would always start with the exit strategy. I think if I were to add to that question is, if someone were to ask me today, hey Ruben, I'm not allowed to do any STR in this area at all, I would say for me that's a deal breaker. Because at the end of the day, I still want to have the ability to have an exit strategy. And if the way I analyze all the properties, whether we're co-hosting or whether you're about to buy, it's literally about what do the STR numbers show? Because I don't want to buy a bust, right? Now, if I show that there's potential, great. This is an add-on strategy. This is not in lieu of. This is how I look at it. Now, we've confidently gone back to back to back to back on contracts, but because we're building also what I told you, a second business on top of it, and that's the relationship business. It's a book of business at the end of the day, but it still does not guarantee that I will land an MTR contract. There's still some chance involved. There's still some demand involved. I can't just optimize as much as possible to just land a contract today. I can be optimized to be in a position where I will always be available, which is one of my other strategies where what most people are not doing is making themselves available, which means they're missing out on opportunities. But going back to your question, Mike, I would always want to have an exit strategy because yes, this strategy works, but I always want to make sure that I understand what my risk from a risk mitigation to always have a backup, right?
Yeah.
And so that's how I look at it. That's how I do my business. It doesn't mean that it can't work without by going all in, because that is essentially what we've done. We're 90% MTR occupied at this time, but it doesn't mean that that can't change, and I'm very aware of that.
Got it. I agree. Agree. It makes sense. Maybe just to double back, just to hit on one of the points that you just made. Kind of always having an exit strategy. So, I guess what I'm double click on is like, how do you analyze if a property is good for MTRs, right? Like, because that's that scenario. That person was kind of off on the short term rental, or maybe they're not a good operator, maybe it's not a good area, whatever reason it is. Is there like a quick self assessment tool that they can say to themselves, like, all right, I'm a 2 bedroom, so this is probably gonna be pretty tough, or like, okay, I'm a 4 bedroom, right?
Yeah.
Not bad. Like, what is a way they can kind of self assess themselves a little bit, like this is viable to do?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. Okay, so first I'll go back, I'll double down on what I just said. First, I'm always going to run it like an STR, because I want to make sure that I can have STR income in case I don't have MTR contract. Now, if you want to understand, like, well, how much could I actually really make on this property? The napkin math, an easy way to do it, from especially, again, I want to be very clear because there's a lot of different types of MTRs, right? The MTR next door might be, it's traditional. Someone's coming in, they're in and out of town for the next 2-3 months. They need somewhere to stay. They're booking you at long-term rental rates. That's not what we
Uh,
optimize for. We're
uh,
optimizing for premium rate, which is with the insurance companies. The insurance companies have a way that they're able to identify how much you'd actually be eligible for. What they use is on your home insurance policy, if you have one, if you're looking at one, if you can get access to one, whether it's one that you're managing or property that you own, is you want to look at your coverage A section. It's also known as, what these insurance companies are using is the loss of use, additional living expenses, as a way to then compute the amount that would be eligible for their policy. I'll give you an example. If you own a $400,000 home, what you might see on your coverage A is the dwelling unit, right? It's usually 20 to 30% of the dwelling unit value, which for a $400,000 home, you'll see $100,000. Let's say we'll go with 20% or 25%, I should say. It'll be $100,000, right? What does that mean with $100,000? Well, it's additional living expense, which means that if there's any condition where you're unable to currently live in your home, that's the amount of money that you can access. Now, that's kind of like an art to that, because you might say, well, Ruben, what if they need to relocate for the next 4 months? Great questions, right? Because then I would take that $100,000 and say, well, would it be unreasonable if I were to divide it by four and say that I could pretty much charge $25,000 a month? Sure. However, the insurance company is not going to overextend their budget. They're always going to leave a little bit of a cushion. So it's probably in your best interest to take that $100,000 and divide it by 6 months, and now you're looking at more of 16,000 a month. That is a good ballpark. Now, keep in mind, there's a few key things you may want to ask if they're coming in. If they're coming in with water damage, you might be like, okay, that could be anywhere from 3 to 5 months. If they're coming in with a fire, that's going to be a 6 to 8 months, and we use that as a negotiation tactic where, you know what, because it's a fire, I'm actually not going to overextend the budget, because I know they're coming to me from a $400,000 home. That if I were to say, hey, $20,000 a month, I know the adjuster is not going to approve that. So if you want to do some quick napkin math, let's say go on Zillow, Realtor.com, look at the property value that you have, and then multiply it by 0.20 or 0.30 so that you're able to get 20, or feel free to do 0.25 if you want. I like to sit right in the middle, because most insurance companies will have a 20% of the dwelling value to 30% of the dwelling values loss of use, called the additional living expense, aka, or coverage D. And that is what is derived as, call it the numerator, to then you can at the bottom divide by the X amount of months that you think they're going to be relocating for. That's a good little napkin math trick for someone who may want to know how much can I actually gross in the MTR insurance space.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay. That's Do you mind? So actually, while you were talking here, I was like, I just
Yeah.
pulled up like a quote I had. So I don't own this property or anything, but I'm just curious. Like, I'm looking at the subject A here. It says so. This out coverage A is 715K for the property. So I just take 0.25 of that, and then that's the
No, no, no.
potential
What
the
is that? Is that coverage A?
coverage. Yeah, I'll show you. This goes on YouTube. So if you're watching this now and you want to see what we're talking about here, I'm gonna put Ruben on the spot here and
Yeah, for sure.
take a look at this for me.
So I'll describe it for those of us who are listening. So we're looking at an insurance policy right now.
This is a quote. It's not a
Yeah, you'd have
okay.
to see, because unless if the quote tells you what the coverage D is. And keep in mind, because folks might be like, they might have an investment property and might be like, I don't see it. Well, that's because some investment properties have loss of rent, not loss of use.
Yeah, I've lost some rent. Yeah, we have loss of rent here. Yeah.
So it's
Go ahead.
120,000. How much is the property worth?
Let's say this, 830.
Okay. So what did I just say? 830
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, that's what I
divided
mean. It's
by,
look at you,
it's
perfect,
right on the money every time.
right on the money.
So that, for those who are maybe not watching, you want to look for additional living expense. You want to look for coverage D. Now, what we're saying is the following, because I want to be very clear. We're not saying to take the 120 and divide it by no. What I'm saying is the following. You're not going to have access to this document, right? You're not going to have an investor. You're not going to have a displaced family reach out to you on Zillow Rent a Manager, and you're not going to be like, hey, can you pull up your loss of use real quick? That's just not practical. However,
Yeah,
what you're going to know is if someone reaches out to you because you've done the homework ahead of time and you've looked your property up, and maybe you don't even need to look it up because maybe you're like, Ruben, I have no idea where to find this. I know it's dug up somewhere deep. Since I closed, I haven't even looked at this. No problem. Go on Zillow, look at what your property is worth. Take 20 to 30% of that. That is on average. I've looked at many. It's either 20% or you're 30. Now, if you come back to me and say, hey, Ruben, mine's 15. Well, guess what? There's this with respect to the insurance company that you're using, there's a range. There's even ranges that say unlimited. That's right. Unlimited loss of use. I've worked directly. I think it's USAA. They have unlimited. So all I'm saying is because someone is going to come to your property and because they're looking to be within a 10-mile radius to relocate a family, because they're looking to relocate a family in a similar zip code and a similar like kind of property, you can use your own as a comp to get an idea of the kind of budget that they're working with so that you can then set your price for the monthly and set it so it's competitive so that you don't leave too much money on the table, but you also don't break and bust the deal. Does that make sense?
that's a lot of value you're dropping too, folks. So I appreciate you walking through that math. I think a lot of people have that same question like that I did. Like, how do you actually just do the quick napkin math? That's perfect. Just go on Zillow times 0.2, and that gives you a ballpark of what the annual or is that. So is that like
Ooh, great question.
is that annual? Is that annual? Is that 8 months? Is it 6 months?
Per claim.
Per claim. Okay.
Now that goes without saying. I'm not saying you're not going to pay a higher insurance company if you have 2 claims in a year. That's between you and your insurance company, and that's typically what they're going to do. They're going to increase your premium, but
Yeah.
that's per. So
Got
don't
it.
go ahead and start, making a bunch of. It would be not even in your best interest, right? But that's per
That'd be,
claim.
yeah.
That's per claim,
Gotcha. Interesting.
right?
Interesting.
Some of them are annual, right? So just everyone do your due diligence to your insurance company. But like what you're asking me is like, hey, what happens a year after if they run out of budget? That's between the insurance company, right? If they your company is probably not going to leave you out to dry, but we've seen some cases too where they're like, hey, listen, they've run out of money, right? So what happens next?
And
That's
the
up.
house not
That's
the
up.
house isn't the house isn't fixed. They got to go figure it out themselves.
That's between you and your. I would put it this way: I had a gentleman who came on. Shout out to Andy. A lot of us are just programmed to call our insurance company when something goes wrong. Remember, the insurance company has their best interest. Make sure you speak to a public adjuster before. I've had a public adjuster add extra zeros to my claim, right? Because they're experts. They're like an attorney for making your own claim. I always focus on the who, not how. So to anyone who's listening, I don't wish it upon yourself, but when something, if it's a matter, if not when, if you're anything like us, we've been through a battle scar, battle stories after battle stories. We literally had a basement flood twice back to back. You couldn't even make it up. But because if you have a public adjuster, when it happens, make sure you remember this. Call your public adjuster before you do anything because you want to make sure that you're squared away and you squeeze your juice. These insurance companies these are billion-dollar companies. This industry has so much money. Think about it for a second. You're paying a premium on a mortgage every single month, and maybe 1 out of 10 homes end up having to do one of these filing a claim. Which means,
Yeah.
what do you think happens with all the premiums you've been paying? They invested in markets, and they make a ton load of money. I can tell you that right now. There is not a shortage in amount of money. They actually had an excess amount of money that they didn't use, right? So keep in mind when you start being shoved around and like, can you do better? This company has a small budget. I've had all sorts of conversations. There's always more money on the other side. It's a matter of stating your cause. Now, it's about also understanding that if I have a claim that came in 4 dogs and 13 chickens, I know
Jeez.
for a fact there are less options out there, and for that reason, you should be able to charge for a premium
Yeah,
for that because you're
man,
solving a complicated problem.
that's it. You get paid. I think Naval was the one that said this online. It's like if you want to make real money in this world, like find a problem that you can solve it at scale, and
Mm,
that is the path. That's how you make money. Actually, is
100%.
solving problems. Like you want to
Solve big
build a business,
problems.
find a problem that you can uniquely solve. If you can do that and you can do it at scale, like you will be just fine. And that is what business is. I was just talking to a friend of mine who was and we're just like she has two businesses. She has a catering business and she has a restaurant in New York that does $7 million total a year.
Jeez.
I know, it's crazy, right?
Restaurant?
Yeah, 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 in a catering business. I didn't even know when she told me we were prepping for it. She was telling me, I was like, "Ooh." So that's gonna be a separate episode, folks. So make sure
That's
you watch that.
interesting.
She and next time you're in New York, I'll take you. Take you and Sally. But we are just like, it's just a game. Like business is a game, and once
Yeah.
you kind of like you get to that place where you just view it as a game and it's just a series of problems and there's series of rules and there's actors and you just got to move the chess pieces around and you gamify it. It becomes much more fun, And
Yeah.
all it is problem solving. Like every day, it's just I have this problem. Like, how do I solve this problem? And I think that's if you want to be a good business person, like if you can solve problems, like you're halfway there.
Yeah. And I think another thing that will serve your audience too, because I know that one of the things you do very well is teaching people how to arbitrage. People are always like, "Bro, Ruben, I'm 100% occupied." Dude, if you solve that problem, that relocation specialist is going to come back to you time and time again. Like, it's not about you, it's about who loses if you don't win. Like, in our mastermind, I've had so many times where we've been 100% occupied. They come to me because we have the relationship keyword. Then I'm able to funnel it over to someone else. Maybe you do a referral fee. Maybe you do a co-host fee. We had a co-host where I would, if you're going to do co-host, I would highly recommend you to have a separate contract with an addendum stating what happens when you land a lucrative contract, because maybe it's not the same 25 to 75 because you have to work for that relationship. Maybe you
Yeah,
structure a win where there's, minimum you get this, maximum that, whatever. There's like some kind of, you don't overcomplicate it, but set it up that way because now you have an extra tool in your toolbox that is also a selling point to investors or partners that you're working with where you say, hey, short-term rentals is great, but we also have relationship with insurance companies that we work with directly, which allows us to have stays that we can book at a premium, and we have that relationship. So that's another thing that we can offer. And I will reach out to you as the homeowner when I do have an availability or a request. Does that work with you? And by the way, if I do reach out, I just want to set precedence by the terms. Would these terms work for you? What's the number that you need to have, right, to be at peace? Great. Boom, handshake, right? Because now you're solving a problem with somebody else's asset, right? And I think there's a huge opportunity to do that for those who are looking for different ways to add value to their business.
but I'm glad I know you, so it will just be like, yeah, no, I have access to all these insurance companies, but they're my partner Ruben. So,
Oh yeah, that's huge leverage. Who not how? As you should, for
shoot,
sure.
exactly. No, it's obviously, I'm very big on short term rentals, but I also know the power of midterm rentals. It's a very viable strategy. There's a place for it, just like there's a place for short term rentals. The more arrows in your quiver, the more tools in your tool set, whatever analogy that you want, cliche you want to use, the more capability, the more people the better business person you will be. And
Yeah,
I think it's very hard to disagree with that statement. And we were talking earlier about the podcast. So, you definitely were one of the inspirations for me to start this. It's, I love having these long form conversations with other guests with you. It's a great way for you and I to catch up. We haven't spoken in a little
I
bit.
know.
And it's nice to spend the last 35 minutes with you. So, I appreciate you spending time with us today. For folks that are interested in short-term in midterm rentals, first, Ruben is really one of the experts. So if it's something you're interested in, really should reach out to him and have a conversation. What's the best way for people to find you?
Sure, just go to my website, experimentrealestate.com. I'll have a little blueprint for you guys for free, MTR insurance blueprint. Just put in your email, it'll get sent right your way, and at least you can be in proximity. My assistant does check the emails, and it does make it my way. And I do have a lot of boot camps that I'll do, or webinars and here and there. But if you're interested in this, you want to get more information, definitely go to experimentrealestate.com and grab the MTR insurance blueprint.
All right, experimentrealestate.com. It will be in the show notes. Click on that, send Ruben an email or his assistant an email, and they will get back to you. My final question, which I ask every guest: business is a team sport.
Yep.
Those words are no truer words are spoken than that. It is
Hmm.
absolutely a successful business is a team sport. We wouldn't be where we are today without people that
Yeah.
have been kind to us, that maybe didn't need to be, and just did it out of the kindness of their hearts. Who was someone like that for you who, went out of their way and really kind of helped you along in your journey to get to the successful, good-looking entrepreneur you are today?
Wow. My goodness. There's so many people, but specifically because we're on the topic of midterm rentals, I'll give a huge shout out, a combination to Dr. Rachel Gainsborough and Mike Sjogren. It's funny because Mike came on my show in episode 91, and he was a client of mine at the time because we launched the Short Term Rental Secrets podcast. And he's like, I retired my mother. I retired myself and my wife in 18 months with this model. And I was like, what? I had a bunch of syndicators on my show, storage. I had never, like short-term rentals. Like, okay, like if you're 50, 70% occupied, that's not 100% occupancy. Like, I just, I just did not have the right paradigm, right? And I think it's so important. I'm very big on that. I have a mindset coach literally that just talks about changing your paradigm, change your life. If you know, change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. I think it's in your best interest if you've looked at all your portfolio the exact same way, you just need to plant the seed and look at it a little bit differently because it's the exact same asset type. There's people out there who don't believe and you just have not looked at the numbers for short-term rentals who own a bunch of long-term rentals and they
Yeah,
just don't know that it exists. Just like this, you could add this model, right, to your existing portfolio, right? It's not in lieu of, it's and just have a complete paradigm shift. So huge shout out to Michael Sherburne because he gave me that foundation. And then Dr. Rachel Gainsborough was in my neck of the woods. I was like, how are you getting these large margins within the same marketplace? You mean I don't have to go to Florida? And she's like, Psst, let me show you. And I think it's in your best interest to surround yourself with people who, it's funny. Was having a conversation about this with someone. A lot of the people that I surround myself with, I'm always stretching, right? Like I love hanging around you. You're just like you told me something personally. I told you about it. I'm like, dude, add an extra zero. I was like, yeah, you're right. Why am I thinking small? But a lot of the people that I hang around with, they just have an abundance mindset. It's not like if I tell you something, it takes away from me. And I think that's so critical when you pick who you want to learn from. Is you want to pick to learn from someone who just has like an infinite supply of knowledge and willingness to give and share. And I think I'm blessed, and I'm very grateful for those people that come in my life, including yourself, Mr. Mike,
I
Mr.
appreciate that,
Chang.
Ruben.
Appreciate you,
Thank you.
brother.
No,
Yeah.
I appreciate the compliment, and shout out to Mike Strogren, him and Mike and P. They had me on their podcast early,
Oh, okay.
when I was kind of starting out my journey, and Dr. Rachel was super
Mm.
kind to me and Liz when we met at Nashville. She didn't really even know us then, and she sat us for like 30 minutes and we just had questions. We're like, "Hey, you're the MTR person. Can we sit and talk to you?" She's super generous with her time, just really explaining stuff, and seeing her in Nashville. Just she immediately remembered like we just had a kid and everything. Just like great people. And yeah, you're right. Like, I mean, just surround yourself with the abundance mindset of good people, and great things will come. So thanks for coming on today. I really appreciate your time, and look forward to great things to come from your end.
Hey, listen, the feeling is mutual. Anytime I can be in proximity to my man, I'll take it any day. Say less.
Nashville 2025. All right, man.
Absolutely. Thanks, brother.